Welcome back. In case you missed the previous episode, you may click the video in the corner. In this episode, I'll be tacking on a final privilege explained in his Part 1 video, as well as responding to, at least in part, an addendum he made on explaining privilege. Link below for full video as always. Take it away.
Number 10. Women have the privilege of being sentenced to far less time served or a lesser punishment than a man for the same crime. Number 1, is this factual? It actually is. I remember doing some research on this before. It's a fact. Number 2, is this a privilege? Sure, why not? Let's call it a privilege. I don't feel like arguing whether it's a privilege or not to be coddled.
This is why the social definition of privilege is flawed, but more on that later.
But let's say, sure, this is a privilege. Step 3, why? It's because women must be coddled.
Feminism is all about coddling women. Why was VAWA passed? To coddle women. Why was manspreading passed? To coddle women. Why do women get more grant money for education than men? To coddle women. Why is it a woman can merely point her finger and claim rape, and the majority of society will just believe them without any research but to coddle women? Feminism is all about removing due process just to coddle women's feelings. Women cannot handle the investigation of facts, so we need to just believe them. This is the feminist narrative. For women's benefits, we do not do this for men, ever. This is feminism, my friend. Women Coddle 101.
Of course. And men are masters of their own destiny.
In a free society, everyone is the master of their own destiny.
Patriarchal ideas for protecting women and making men responsible for themselves.
Then feminism supports patriarchal ideals. Exhibit A, teach men not to rape. Exhibit B, white ribbon campaign. Exhibit C, he for she. You were saying about coddling women? Well, I don't know about you and what you believe in, but feminism isn't it. Now, I'm not telling you not to be a feminist, but I am pointing out what you believe in and what feminism practices are two very different things. I ask you this one question. Which is more equal, whiteribbon.ca or whiteribbon.org? I will give you a hint here that whiteribbon.org is not a feminist organization.
The sooner we get rid of those patriarchal ideas, that is, the sooner we become a more feminist society.
You mean that same feminist society that requires men to coddle women? Based on what I've seen, feminism ain't it, bud.
The sooner you'll find this bit of privilege disappear.
I highly doubt that, my friend, as there's a lot more evidence to support feminism is for these privileges than against, especially if you look at the feminist organizations like NOW, feminist.org, and UN Women. While these are the faces of feminism, your version of feminism is just a pipe dream. Now on to your addendum.
In regards to the comments I got in part 1 of my video series, some of the comments were similar to the whole quote-unquote redefining privilege thing. Although I will still assert that I'm not redefining it, I'm using the correct contextual definition.
You are using a feminist theory definition of privilege so that men are the only ones that can be privileged. That makes it a problem. You are looking through the lens of a flawed theory to begin with, and that is why it is not correct. Let's take creationism for example. Creationists have a theory, right? That the world was created in 6,000 years. And if we were going to look at the world through the lens of that, we can prove that a lot of quote-unquote science to be incorrect because based on the creationist theory stating the world must have been created in 6,000 years. It doesn't matter how much evidence you bring up, my theory based on what I say refutes it. Same with your Bullock's definition of privilege. You are pulling it from a flawed theory to begin with, which is why when you break it down, this social definition falls apart. This is why, based on reality, we see in action both sexes having advantages and disadvantages. This grass is always greener mentality feminism has is quite unnerving.
So the context in which a word is used is important. When one is talking about privilege in a sociological context, example gratia, white privilege or male privilege, or black privilege, or female privilege, or whatever social subgroup privilege, one should use a sociological meaning.
You don't see the flaw in your logic in how you are painting an entire group of people under a broad brush when creating a feminist narrative of privilege? By all rights, then a homeless white guy is supposed to have more privileges than Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, and Michelle Obama all rolled into one. Or maybe it has to do with class and not gender. Making a gender into a class is why feminism gets laughed at, because Oprah is so oppressed because she is a black woman under feminist theory. Don't make me laugh. Yes, forget all those famous black women singers and actresses that have made a name for themselves. They don't count. When you have benefits up the wazoo for specific ethnicity groups except for that homeless white guy, but as soon as you make that person a black person or a woman, they now have more options available to him, that's a problem. This is reality. Reality, meet feminism. Feminism, meet reality.
If you don't think that the sociological definition has any merit, then, once again, that's a whole nother ballgame. And a video regarding the merits of female privilege is completely irrelevant and, well, frankly, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, what doesn't make sense is this social definition of privilege, ignoring benefits received to one specific group of people while not awarded to others, then saying, well, that's not a privilege because it's not a social privilege. That, my friend, is retarded.
There was some discussion as to different standards for men and women in various roles. I stand by my assertion that different standards merely take into account biological differences. It may be anecdotal, but while I was in the Navy, there was this one woman who was, well, stronger than I was.
And her being stronger than you has nothing to do with the standard set being different between men and women, biological or otherwise. I know I cut it out due to brevity, but you just got finished telling us about exceptions to the rule. Don't start that doublethink on us where you dismiss one argument and then introduce an exception to the rule yourself. I reiterate what I said before. If a man cannot do 50 push-ups despite his makeup being weak or less strong, he doesn't make it into the military despite being able to do his desk job. Now make your anecdotal example into a man. The military does not lower standards for him, despite being weaker than most men. So if there are physical standards required to do a certain job, lowering standards is still a privilege despite biological differences. When it comes to the firefighter job, a firefighter is required to deadlift over 100 pounds because that is how much the water hose weighs, and if they have to firemen carry someone down a burning building, the person doesn't magically lose weight if the person to rescue them is a woman. Well, I'm going to leave you with a little food for thought. A man doing a desk job in the military is still required to do more physical training than a woman doing security police work. That is a privilege.